break. Now, we do want to take a second to, in between these games, to thank our sponsor, MirG, for sponsoring SC2CTL. They have been really awesome. They put up over $1,000 to the league to go directly 100%, I won't say 100%, but mostly to tournament prizes for the teams. Over $700 for the Master Grandmaster League that we're casting here, and cash prizes all the way down to the Bronze, Silver, Gold League. I believe the winner gets $20. So each team player could walk home with $5. But hey, it's still cash prizing for every single league in SC2CTL, and that's really, really awesome. We would suggest that you check them out. They are a system builder here, local to us in Michigan. They build some pretty awesome gaming rigs. MythLogic.com is where you can find them, or do them a favor and follow them on Twitter or Facebook. And if you would be so kind as to go out to Twitter and tweet them and let them know your appreciation for sponsoring this league, that'd be super, super awesome.
Absolutely. They also have an Instagram account as well if you wanted to see. I don't know what kind of pictures they're taking, but I'm sure that they're of computers to some regard. So
mostly custom-built, awesome PCs.
Nice.
And some of the photos are pretty sick.
So if you like the Instagram, then that's another place to get some inspiration for your next custom build, and you might be able to get some input from MythLogic as well.
Yep, and we are going to be moving into game number 3, Overdose Gaming Aegis versus Miraculous Gaming's Frisia. Gallegation.
Yes, sir. So we do have these bios, for, I believe, for these players. We've got, let's see, from Overdose Gaming, we're seeing Aegis. Is that correct?
Something like that.
So he's a mid-master Terran. A pretty solid macro player and kind of does things his own way most of the time. And that's all that I have for him. Sorry, those notes are a little bit more disjointed than I'm used to. But glad to have something rather than nothing. And Frisia. He is the Miraculous Gaming owner. He got into Grandmasters last season. He's a macro-heavy oriented player, and he was the previous manager of Overdosed Gaming. So we remember when I said that we don't have a lot of drama for 8 or 9 months before he decided to start Miraculous Gaming, and because there was some unique leadership systems in Overdose that I think didn't quite agree with him, but we may hear more on that later. At any rate, he founded his own team, and now they have a clan war, so definitely some drama. There's definitely some emotions in these games.
Yeah, it would be fairly interesting as we jump right on into the game to be on a team that then your second. This is actually a game from the first week of SC2CTL. First week being paired up against your old team. Definitely an interesting scenario. But as we jump into the game on merry-go-round LE, wearing Protoss, being purple, being Protoss wearing purple in the upper right-hand corner, it is Miraculous Gaming's Frisia.
And in the 6 o'clock position from Overdosed Gaming in Terran Trunks, it is Aegis.
I will continue to mention it every game, but I do give a big round of applause to Troy, who put together a pretty awesome map pool for the season. I was skeptical at first because my initial reaction was ladder map pools and nothing but ladder map pools. And he did not agree with me, and I am very glad that he didn't, because we have some really cool maps. Really cool. And we also partnered with Troy. If you want to paste any of that info in chat, I always forget the name, but we did partner with a map-making team, which actually provided several of these maps. I don't believe one of these, but you will see them coming up, and it is pretty cool. So we're going to see a quick barracks and gas out of Aegis. Probably going to be some Reaper scouting. Protoss up on the right is doing normal things, gateway and gas. My favorite thing to see as Protoss against Terran is them SCV killers.
Looks like both players are going to be scouting the position in which they will be seeing nothing, except for maybe each other high-fiving on their way to the next position. So it will be a little bit more of a delay before they get any information. Oh, it looks like the SCV actually... Oh, he just wanted to grab that tower.
That's actually really smart of Aegis to take that tower in the middle, because if Frisia was sending out a scout at about the same time, you could see what direction it was coming from, and then deduce the location from there. But alas, he was a little bit behind Frisia. Now seeing him come out of this base, and so we'll be spending a little bit more time scouting around. But Reaper is on the way out for Aegis, so he will be getting quite a bit of information with that. Those Reapers so fast and so healy.
Absolutely. Now, how many Reapers do you think are going to be made on this map? Because sometimes we see just one to kind of get a feel for it, and sometimes we see 3 or 4.
I think it's going to be more along the 3 to 4 line, just because we don't see anything super crazy coming out of Aegis, and he hasn't really been able to get up in there and scout his opponent. Now he's going to have to use this Reaper here to defend in his main base, but looks like he's going to actually lift up and build a reactor, so we will probably see, if I was to guess, 2 Reapers at a time. Oh, he's got to build a reactor first. Silly me. So 1 Reaper for now, but he does get the SCV up in Freesia's base. Going to be scouting around to the far extents of it, seeing that pylon out there, make sure there's no sneaky buildings, but in fact it's just an expansion. So fairly normal things out of Freesia, especially on a large map like this.
That Reaper taking its time to make sure there's no proxy pylon set up at this point from the probe that was scouting him, and now is going to be moving, looks like, towards his opponent potentially. Yep, there he goes. SCV actually made it out of there alive despite some zealot harassment trying to cut him off.
Phil in chat, actually you should be able to turn the quality of the stream down, as we are a cool stream that has that ability, so that you can craft it to your internet potential. Reaper is going to come in and make its rounds around. Oh, the Mothership Core does spot it there, gets a couple extra hits on it, but that Reaper's so very fast that if this Stalker Mothership Core get it cornered here, it actually could be a little bit rough, and does kill the Reaper, so no more scouting for Aegis with that.
No, I mean, the back of the base, normally a safe place to run to with a Reaper, but in this map there's just nowhere to hop down from.
Yeah, he did do a little bit of a juke there and took a couple extra shots from that Mothership Core, and those do actually do quite a bit of damage to those light units, so that definitely a factor. But he hasn't really produced any more, though, as he does have his reactor and his tech lab just about to finish up on his barracks, so be starting to move into that bio production, methinks.
Yep, it looks like he's going in that position, getting stim going down. He's got Marines in production, a 3rd barracks on the way.
I mean, what Aegis did see when he came around with that Reaper that had such a short life is nothing too out of the ordinary from Freesia. Obviously, every Terran in the world is going to be looking for that Stargate, because you don't want those Oracles coming in to ruin your day, especially without anything that shoots up, as that's a bit of a risk of going with those Reapers. Not that Marines really stand a whole heck of a lot of chance against an Oracle, but Observer does come out for Freesia with that Robotics Bay. Going to be producing another one, wants to keep an eye on his opponent. Both players here, a full bunker out front for Aegis, so will be fairly well defended for now, putting up towers just in case, so he will, Freesia will have to be careful with those observers.
Freesia does have a probe hanging out in the left base, kind of more in the 10 o'clock position. I'm not sure what he's kind of doing with that. That location is equidistant to his opponent than his main base is, so it's difficult to tell exactly what's going to go on. He could put down a proxy pylon and warp in from strange directions, but it's possibly just hiding in there for future scouting.
Aegis is moving out across the map with a small batch of Marines. The Observer is going to spot it out front here, moving the sentries. Does have enough force fields to keep him out for a decent amount of time, and even if he did make it in, the Mothership Core is right there with the Photon Overcharge, so not going to get a lot done out of this, but is going to bait a Photon Overcharge to keep that energy down on the Mothership Core, and also keep his opponent busy, and mostly just make sure he stays back at home.
That's absolutely right. Now, though, that small strike force is looking around to see if it can find a 3rd base. Isn't going to find anything, but it's smart to check anyway.
Methinks this probe has something up its sleeve up here. Keeps moving around into different locations. But oh, and a Nexus is going to go down. I was thinking maybe a Proxy Twilight Council or something for some DTs or Blink, but in fact it looks like the robotics facility is down. Colossus going to be the name of the game. Upgrades coming down, as well as a Warp Prism. So some possible harassment with that, and a remote Nexus. So how much do you think that makes a factor in this game, given the recall ability of Protoss?
I mean, that could be real good, but when you're going against the Terran, especially if they start to get drop capability, you can't recall forever, you know? So if you do a strike force at one base, get the army recalls there, then you pull that out immediately, move another drop into the main base, you can kind of, you know, slingshot them back and forth like that until they run out of energy, and then just keep attacking the one that they end up being at. I mean, obviously, the Protoss could split up their army and only recall part of them, but that's a difficult split-second decision to make. However, the drops are going in favor of Frisia at this point, as he does have that Warp Prism filled up with Zealots getting ready to make a strike.
He's sure thinking about it. It almost looks like that Warp Prism is a little bit stuck on that giant tower fan over there for a moment.
Yeah, it looked like it kind of glitched out.
Going to be coming in here. There is a tower there, so the Warp Prism is not going to be able to stick around. The Zealots take a bad angle going in there. Nice stim comes up and is able to snipe down that Warp Prism, so did not get much, if anything at all, done. Looks like one worker killed for Aegis so far, and Frisia got none out of that. So that was a time and effort spent that was not all that fruitful.
Aegis now has a drop of his own going across the map, and there is not quite as much there to defend as was in his own base. There is a Marine on the left side of the map as well that was doing some scouting around looking for a pylon. If only he knew, if he traveled a little farther, he might find something worth seeing.
As we were noting there, Frisia did, for a moment, have his Nexus unrallied, so a few probes were just hanging out, taking a little vacation, but a little drop coming into the main base of Frisia. Doesn't have any units right around. Stim up into the probe line, just running right for those probes. Gonna get a decent number killed before the units come in here to react. Loads right up and boosts on out of there without taking a whole lot of unrepairable damage.
But it did get down into the red piece there, so if he's not careful with that medevac, he could lose it and the entire contents.
Yeah, Aegis did get 5 additional SC vehicles out of that, having 1 already. He's going to go ahead and unload those units, heal them up. I don't know how it works out economically, but when I play Terran, even though Terran is not my strong suit by any stretch, I like to drop a mule there to repair that medevac and keep the pressure on. But now High Templars on the field, so feedback could be a big story for any medevacs wanting to work their way in, getting quite a bit of damage done. Upgrades continuing to come out for Frisia as well. There are quite a number of Colossus on the field now. It looks like 2 with the range upgrade done. So I do definitely like this build out of Frisia. It's definitely a build that I think we've seen out of him before.
Mm-hmm. There are 2 more medevacs going across the map, trying to desperately find where that third base is, not able to find it. And he's just not looking in the right position, so this proxy nexus is actually paying off for him. These 2 medevacs are going to be hitting in the natural base, however, and the Templars are moving in the wrong direction now, moving back more closely, but aren't doing a whole lot. 1 does fall, 2 fall, 3 fall, does get the feedback off, and it looks like those medevacs, yeah, they're going to get right on out there.
Oh, man. That was bad news bears for Frisia. Lost quite a lot of Templar there. Did get the feedbacks down, but with those energy relatively low on those medevacs, didn't really do a whole lot. That's a pretty big deal, and he just started researching Storm there right as that drop was coming down. I actually thought that Aegis was going to target down the Twilight Council there, which was researching Zealot Speed at the time, and if you that's really nasty to happen to you if you get that. I mean, that's one of the key upgrades in this matchup, and if you get a drop that comes in, the Terrans definitely know the timings of that to snipe down those important upgrades. It really puts a hamper in your ability to push out.
So now Frisia actually taking advantage a little bit of his hidden base here, putting some gateways there as well, so he will be somewhat masking his full ground unit capability, as they can warp in just about anywhere. That drop going back in once again.
Yes, and exploiting the relative immobility of Frisia, but he does warp in 2 Stalkers, gets 1 medevac down. I swear, these giant fan towers are a big problem for Aegis right now. Actually, for both players, Frisia, his Warp Prism got stuck on it at first, but I don't know what's going on there, but definitely some pathing difficulty in the back of the map for flying units.
That's right. Frisia taking that as a cue to move out. He is sending his entire force across the map. And Aegis does get a eye on it.
Yeah, it looks like Aegis is trying to really... can't believe that there's no third base now. Looks like he's stimming a Marine around looking for it as he's putting down a semi-remote 4th of his own. May have been a little bit of a misclick there as several Guardian Shields come out for Frisia in the middle of the map.
Whoop.
It is hard with having 3 to 4 different caster units if you're not using multiple hotkeys, and it's difficult to manage a large number of hotkeys, but looks like he's going to be moving up here with Storm done and Colossus. This is going to be a deadly move for Frisia if he can get the positioning right. Tanks up on the high ground, going to be really tough to deal with as he doesn't really have flying units. Has to get those Colossus close to get vision, but cannot. Takes a lot of free shots on those Zealots.
And I thought that was going to be really bad for those SCVs, but the tanks were able to cover them. But now the entirety of the army is moving up the ramp. Storm's going down. Huge storms. SCVs moving forward, trying to get a repair on the bunker, but it is not happening. Everything is getting destroyed. The Banshees are moving in, trying to get some shots off. One Colossus does fall, but this army is too strong.
I feel like this is a fairly even fight at the moment. There are quite a few units left for Frisia, but these cloaked Banshees, he just does not have anything to deal with them. So those Banshees alone allow him to hold on, and Frisia gonna have to push back and do some more warp-ins, but Aegis sending out 2 full medevacs of his own, knowing that Frisia has moved out to try and exploit the home base, but there is a High Templar standing by with full energy. But Frisia looking like he's not all that comfortable. He is taking another expansion by his remote third, taking a 4th, and that 4th of Aegis is right nearby. Planetary Fortress is going to be coming down for that. Looks like Frisia thinks something might be on the way as he's pulled his army all the way back to the main gates. Towers up now for Aegis, so he will see any flying units coming in from the backside, deciding to pull back those medevacs, knowing that Frisia pulled back his army.
But not moving forward to try and deal any damage to those pylons. I mean, he had to pull back because he ran out of stalkers, essentially. Didn't have the necessarily all the energy, or didn't want to use the energy on those Banshees. But that Banshee count is getting quite large at this point, and that would decimate Zealots and Colossi.
The definite factor in that push for Frisia is that all those SCVs were pulled down, and that storm killing just about 36 SCVs of Aegis. So looking at the total count of workers, 64 probes to 58 SCVs for Aegis. So relatively even, but yet still Frisia is in the lead, taking another base of his own. So we're looking at 5 bases for Frisia and 4 for Aegis, but it looks like it could be in some heat here, as there is a pylon right near his 4th.
Yeah, I don't think either player has an idea that their opponent is so near.
Nope, actually there is no knowledge of those bases looking at either side. Aegis has no idea those 2 remote bases exist.
But now Frisia, a little bit stronger army, got the Stalker count back up, got Archons now moving back across the map. Aegis pulling back to his ramp. Not nearly as many defenses here this time, trying to hastily rebuild those bunkers, but that's not going to be done in time.
Yeah, now...
Finally, a Marine sees that 4th.
He's like, oh, now I understand how you have all this stuff. But Frisia now with a good-looking army, both players at about 180 supply, but Frisia with a bit of an advantage in the upgrades. Those storms kill so many SCVs, killing most of the SCVs of Frisia. Looking at the killed, it is about 51 now, but that is a lot of Cloak Banshee Scaligation.
It absolutely is, but he's got to be real careful with them, because those Archons and Stalkers will turn him into mincemeat, you know, and they're all low energy. They don't have a lot of Cloak left. Yeah, there is an Observer there anyway, so the Cloak isn't really all that matter. I guess he does want to keep the energy low in that case. But now everything moving in, Ravens going forward, and Banshees taking their shots as well. Don't see really the Ravens putting down a whole lot of...
Yeah, those point defense drones out of the Ravens are seriously hard to deal with. But a drop coming down now as Aegis is getting the ability to push back on these free bases here. Frisia so far. Warp-in does come down, but not before the Nexus falls. Aegis is just going to go ahead and load on up and move on out. Is he going to go up to the other one, though? Looks like he is. There's a cannon there, but that is not going to stop. 2 full medevacs worth of units. Now Frisia is going to have to decide what he wants to do, because if he loses both of these bases, that could be rough.
I feel like Aegis is feeling fairly vindicated now, a little bit more comfortable, finally realizing what had been going on. But Dark Templar being warped in, to try and deal with this, and those medevacs don't really know what to do with themselves.
Well, it looked like the Aegis tried to load his units back up, but the medevacs being on the opposite side of those DTs and the pathing involved did walk them right into him and was able to take them out. But Frisia moving back down, trying to get a little bit of damage done on this expansion here, which he has halted mining in there altogether. But holy cow, Galliation, that's doing math in my head, like 22 Cloaked Banshees.
That is quite a few. Both players kind of fighting for territory now. Frisia trying to take out this next base that Aegis is taking, and also trying to keep pressure on, but he is taking his own economic hurts himself, trying to regroup his army back towards more of his main base.
I do like this composition from Aegis. These Ravens are definitely cool to have in the mix here, as the point defense drone, pretty much every ability is super useful. Point defense drone can really soak up a lot of damage, and if you can get a Hunter Seeker down on one of these Zealot packs or those High Templar packs, whew, that's bad news. But it looks like the Banshees are going to be moving in, trying to make sure that this base does not stay up. He wants to get this remote base down for Frisia. But now it is getting close to being probably about 3/4 mined out, but Frisia taking that cue to move on in, as most of the units of Aegis are up at the top of the map.
And Aegis is forced to kind of lift up. There are tanks on the high ground getting some shots in. Banshees are moving forward. Storm goes down a little bit off, but the second one is more head on, and they just keep coming down. Aegis not moving. Those Banshees going to lose all of them. And sure enough, they fall storm after storm. It was a lot of storm to just kill 3 Banshees, but they did go down.
It was a Hunter Seeker missile that was on its way out there, but Frisia was able to pull back in time to be able to avoid that. In the meantime, the Banshees did take out the remote base of Frisia, so he is back on the 4 bases that are near. He did lose all his probes up there, though, so 63 to 52 kills, over 110 workers total have been killed. Another drop of 2 Marauders coming up here to do some damage on the top base for Frisia. Frisia is sending, I thought was going to be some units, but he's sending some probes to mine while it's under siege. Very confident in those probes' abilities to mine.
2 Stalkers do get warped in, and 2 DTs. They will be able to clean that up without problem, especially when Aegis isn't paying attention.
Medevac did take a little bit of time to stick around there, but the Banshee army of Aegis, something to be feared for sure, is moving on in now. Upgrades are definitely in favor of Frisia at the moment. He has +1 attack and +3 armor, so definitely high armor, +1/1 bio for Aegis. Does not appear to have upgrades on the mech units just yet, but it doesn't really matter when you've got almost 30 Cloak Banshees.
That's absolutely true. Those point defense drones do go down, but there's not a whole lot of fodder for them to catch at this point. Banshees are basically taking out everything that was there, any remnant of there ever having been civilization, but the army is moving forward. Banshees are engaging them kind of at an off angle. Oh, and the blink forward doing a lot of damage to those Raven. Storms going down, not paying attention. Aegis moves back to the point defense drones, but those Banshees are hurting very heavily.
Oh, that's nice play by Frisia to use feedback on those point defense drones, as those Stalkers were just kind of being silly, shooting at them, even though their shots are being taken out. But now those Banshees are going to escape back into the back corner. Now the remote base of Aegis is set up. So it's been a fairly long game. We're approaching the 30-minute point. Let's do a little recap here. Gallegation, who's in the lead right now?
Oh my goodness, it's hard to tell. It looks like Aegis is kind of edging his way forward as he puts another front onto the 3rd base, the only remaining mining base for his opponent. But Frisia does have a large army. It's just got to stick together as a ball, and Aegis is able to kind of move his around a little bit more. He's losing some of those Banshees, but he is more established than his opponent. He keeps putting down bases, and Frisia's having a hard time keeping ground at this point.
I think you hit the nail on the head with the fact that Frisia has to keep his army in a ball, and it is a bit of a lumbering mass to move across the map, while Aegis is given the ability to kind of split up his units and harass more. Frisia just is not able to harass. He's only able to put a head-on force into the base of Aegis, and right now he's just totally pinned back.
And at this point, Frisia kind of in the other side of the coin situation that he was in earlier in the game. He still has no idea of this orbital command in the bottom left-hand base. Just now the 2 Zealots are moving in to do some damage here, but that was a unaffected base for a long time, so definitely some increased mining from that, but he's going to have to deal with these 2 Zealots if he wants to be able to continue to mine there.
And Aegis is now at 200 supplies, so he's going to be sticking with the army he's got. We'll see if he ends up deciding to sack out some units, see how many SCVs. He does have 60 SCVs left, so this is kind of the point as you get the high number of orbital commands where you just send a rally line of SCVs across the map and rely on the mules to keep mining so you can get a higher army supply. But he's going to be pushing up a group of tanks up to the natural 3rd base of Frisia. He is gonna,
and this is just a sacrifice of
he's
units
definitely
at this point.
He's definitely just getting rid of these tanks.
Yep, he wants the food and do whatever damage he can while they're alive.
So what is he going to produce off of that? It looks like he does have his mech upgrades coming back, still producing more Banshees. A fusion core is coming in, so are we going to see a fusion core dance coming down in this game? A lot of Ravens here too.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a composition we don't see all that often, I don't think, as we really haven't seen that many long Terran games, to be honest, yet this season.
Well, Sky Terran that doesn't include, geez, I can't even remember their name now.
Battle cruisers.
Battle cruisers, thank you. Jeez, I just never see them anymore, and this battalion, or this whole army is kind of showing you why you don't need them. However, I mean, there are Vikings there, but any large number of Phoenix would be able to deal with this without too much of a difficulty. They can micro around those Vikings.
There were a couple Hunter Seeker missiles that went down there, targeted on the Archons, and so far, most of them have hit. They do kill an Archon straight out, but Storm going down on those Banshees, oh, quite a bit of damage as they're all banched up. Banshees, just about the worst unit at piling on top of each other.
Yeah. They are in a epic struggle with mutas.
Second to only mutas.
Yeah.
But a supply depot was going down at that base to a late game attempt to delay that a bit. But Age is looking to really take a stranglehold in this game right now. Frisia does have a decent army. I mean, he is starting to whittle down the supply here as he's only at 134, but Age is really taking all the bases and just exerting himself, being able to scout around and do a lot of sniping with it. What have we? Oh, wait a minute. Where is it? There it is. Fusion core time.
All right. I'm not doing the dance today.
I'm not either.
Okay, good. I'm glad I didn't make a fool of myself. At any rate, Frisia is really having a hard time here. He did not put down... He's really struggling to get this third Nexus down again. He's remote mining because that is the only minerals that he has access to at this point, which is also preventing his main army from really moving anywhere. He's got to sit there and defend his base. He does have some strike forces moving around, some DTs, trying to do what economic damage he can, but he is just in such a far behind spot at this point. It's going to be really hard for him to claw back into this game.
Yeah, the comment in chat right now is suggesting that the best option would be to just sit back and defend a base, but we've seen him try that now as he's pushing out to poke in a little bit here, but he's gonna... The army of Aegis is just so scary right now at 190 food to 128. Storms do go down on a huge group of Banshees, but the Banshees move out of it. It looks like some of them now getting down into the red. Storms continue to go down. That was an epic battle there. Almost all the Banshees and mech units of Aegis go down. Now the food is exactly even, but battle cruisers coming in Gallegation.
Now they're coming in, but is it too little too late almost? I mean, he just lost his entire army, but they are doing quite a bit of damage. Stalkers hammering away on what they can, but they're going to be forced to retreat, leaving behind the Immortals and battle cruisers right at the right time, but these Zealots kind of still continuing to do damage, kind of not really getting the best surrounds on these. Needs to take a few lessons from Zerg players on how to get good surrounds.
Yeah, but he is going to take out that fusion core, which is going to delay any more battleship production or battle cruiser production for quite a while, trying to take out some of the little tech structures to interrupt the production of Aegis, as Frisia does understand that he has a mineral and gas advantage right now, and how much will that affect it? We will have to see, but right now the battle cruiser is looking like they're doing a pretty good job with +2 attack upgrades as well.
Absolutely, that was the perfectly timed kind of switch into battle cruisers, and he's got so many starports now that even it was really smart of Frisia to kind of move his focus from the starports onto the fusion core, as that is going to limit his production capability. I don't even see that building being rebuilt, so it's possible that he's just happy with the number of battle cruisers that he's got. He's going to try and move forward and do what he can with it.
And we're at the 35-minute point, and it's 50 SCVs to 31 probes, Gallegation. And now Frisia's still trying to block that, or speaking for myself, trying to defend this base by blocking off the path for his army to get out there, but these handful of Stalkers not going to be able to stack up to these battle cruisers. They are moving in, doing a lot of damage. Frisia not going to be able to hold on to this third base. This is going to be the nail in the coffin as he's down to no mining once again.
Absolutely, he needed that base, and he cannot hold off any longer with these battle cruisers right on his his doorstep here. Essentially, they're going to be moving into his base any moment, and once again, Frisia forced to remote mine, putting down another base. It's going to be a while before he has anything, and his army count is not high. He's only got those 8 Stalkers and a Mothership Core on the map currently.
Yeah, those Banshees have definitely been the name of efficiency in this game, being so useful for Aegis, being able to really put a clinch on Frisia. I mean, that really turned around the game, being able to do all that harassment, keeping that giant death ball of Frisia busy, and he just definitely could not be in more than one place at a time with that army.
No, not at all. That Nexus does fall, was not canceled, so no refunded minerals for him. He is sitting at less than 100. His probe count has diminished to 7, which is equal to his stalker count. There is not going to be a whole lot more of this game.
Yeah, these stalkers coming in here to do a little bit of final damage to these turrets. SCV's coming out to repair just as a kind of giving him the finger a little bit right there.
While the Banshee and Battleship Army is moving in to the natural that has long been mined out, moving right along, destroying things as he comes across them at this point. Mothership Core sitting there without a whole lot to do except getting attacked, and that's going to fall.
Yeah, Banshee's still being produced as well as Ravens. I mean, while the production of Frieza obviously is at 0 because he's lost all mining, all income. This army pushing into the main base of Frieza. This has to be the end here relatively soon. These stalkers still trying to push their way in there. The numbers down to 4 from 7, and one of those with only a couple hit points left. And H is still just continuing to move on in here. These battlecruisers are doing so much damage with their high upgrades. And one battlecruiser is even at 43 hit points.
So down to 3 stalkers and 1 probe. I think we all know who's going to win this one, but Frieza kind of sticking to his guns here. 2 stalkers now. He's not going to go till the fat lady sings, using that blink micro to save 1 low health stalker.
You gotta appreciate some determination there, Gallegation.
Indeed.
But that was a really cool game because, you know, I feel like it's not something that we often see. I mean, when we see it, it's a really good game, is that Terran sort of air mech. And because, you know, while you see air toss a lot, I feel like air mech for Terran is a lot harder to set up and to make work because it's not something you just do. You have to have an early game and a mid game and then sort of have this lumbering transition into it.
Yeah, but I mean, we saw him really kind of move through those stages very smoothly and very slowly, kind of getting to the right point and not trying to jump the gun on anything necessarily, but really keep a lot of pressure on his opponent. And eventually, as we saw, just really shutting down all his bases, keeping the harassment up, and was just basically able to starve him out.
Yeah, absolutely. So now the score after that game is going to move to 2-1 in favor of Overdose Gaming. So Overdose coming out, taking the first point. Miraculous Gaming coming in to tie it up. Now Overdose taking a second victory. So we will continue to see how this match goes. But first, we're going to take a very brief break before we jump into our game number 4. And we will be right back.